Today we have a 2010 Dodge Challenger Hemi 5.7 liter vehicle come into our shop today. Issue with it is not running correctly and the check engine light on. Scanned it for codes, had a P0013 stored in the system. I'm Eric Bagley, Lloyd's Automotive and Transmission in downtown Olympia. We're going to delve into this and see what's going on and what potentially the problem may be and see what we need to do to repair the vehicle. I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. We appreciate your support. So to get started here, we're going to start by getting our hood light set up on it, get some fender covers on it to protect the vehicle. Going to raise it up in the air. My back, it doesn't like bending over as little as possible. So if you do have a lift available to your disposal, it's always nicer to lift the vehicle up to make it easier to work on. Okay, so we got the vehicle up in the air a little bit to make it easier to reach everything on the engine. Set up our fender covers to protect the paint. Alrighty. Now we need to set up our hood light so we can actually see underneath this motor and see what's going on. Let's hook it over here. All right. All right, so now we can see what we're working on. These overhead lights by Milwaukee work out real amazing. They got the big batteries on the back of them. So engine cover just snaps into place. Got to take the oil cap off to get to it. Let's see what we have here. So looking at the engine over on this side over here, you can see that there is a lot of the styrofoam from the underside of the engine cover down in here, and it's definitely a sign that we got a mouse that's been living in here. And so the likely chances of there being damage to the wiring is really, really good. What we're going to have to do is take this intake manifold off. The solenoid related to the code is under the intake manifold here, so we got to take this off. We can inspect the wiring down underneath there, and just going to put in a new solenoid while we're there also, because they're a pretty highly failed part on these engines. So we're going to take the injector pigtails off the vehicle, wiring connectors. That way we can get in there better with a vacuum cleaner and clean some of this up. To take these loose, they got these safeties on the clips, so you just stick something like a scribe in there and just push the tab down. Then you just pop right up. I've already went through and done the other ones to save some time here. Then it's as simple as just pushing each one in, and they just will come right off. And if you look on here, you can kind of see the clip down in there. You just got to push that little red tab down in there, and the safety will come off. Then we go to this side here, do the same thing. Disconnect them all, kind of take these wires out of the way. You want to get the vacuum cleaner to clean this stuff up so it's not dropping down in the engine while we take it apart. These mouses are kind of nasty little creatures and can cause a lot of damage. We see 1 to 2 of them a week causing damage on vehicles. Okay, we got the vacuum cleaner over here. Alrighty, so got that cleaned up the best we can for right now. We're going to now continue taking the intake manifold off so we can see exactly what's going on underneath here. I'm assuming that we're probably going to see more mouse nests, but I guess we'll find out and see. There's your electric throttle body. Okay. Put those on there pretty tight. They're important that they make a really, really good connection. Emissions hose here for your evap purge system. Actually, I probably didn't even need to come off here. We'll just put that back on. Okay, so we got to disconnect the fuel line to it. The proper way is you depressurize the system. Well, in the real industry, we just disconnect it and just put a brag around it. But be careful whatever you're going to be doing if you're doing it yourself. All right, and I can just put a rag around that and just leave it off to the side. And we're going to take this off of here so we can reuse it when we go back together again. Okay, now we got the snorkel tube. Got to get this off of here because the whole intake is going to be coming off. .5/16 nut driver. And it's got an aftermarket K&N ram air system on it. Oh yeah, it goes up through there. It's kind of neat. Let's take both our sides off. Yeah, it looks like that little piece of rubber here was pushed through at some time by somebody, kind of a little mangled. We'll see if we can't get that a little bit more shaped better when we go back together again. All right, so I've got to see what's in the back here. Got the Streamlight flashlight. These things are amazingly bright. A lot of the tools, we're going to have links down in the description. And anything that you do purchase through there does help support our channel here and bringing this content to you. All right, so we got another electrical connector back here we got to get off. So once again, you just kind of stick your into the back side of that red piece back here, and then it allows you to take the safety off. And there we go. That wire here is connected to the intake manifold as well. So we're just gonna have to pop that down.
Good.
Okay, so we got the little wire piece that connects on the back of the intake manifold off of there. Of course, it broke when it came off. Not a big deal. There's replacement pieces that you can get that'll just fix that and take care of that. They're plastic and they go kind of in where they push in and then they don't want to come back out again. So not a problem with that. We'll just fix that as we go back together. So now we'll proceed forward with taking this intake manifold off and see what we find out underneath here. We'll switch tools. That's not quite cutting it good enough here. So you kind of want to alternate back and forth on either side. All right, so let's see what we got here. We'll check everything over as we're coming up to make sure there's nothing else connected. One more bolt. So I always take things easy and just look them over. Feel like something's catching on the back here. See what we got. And another hose going in, vacuum hose going into it. Okay. Okay, got that vacuum hose off of there. That guy was really on there tight. Okay, got the intake off of there. See what we got. Of course, more mouse damage down in here. Up, and there's your problem right there. You can see the wiring is all chewed up. And a little bit of damage to that foam padding there. Going to this sensor right here. So let's get that padding out of there, and then we'll assess it better and see what we got to do to get this fixed. All right, I gotta see here. So the mouse got this pad here and the underside of the cover that goes over the engine as well. So we'll need to vacuum this up. Better look at the wires here. Where it got, it broke right in half, so that's why we have a hard electrical fault code. Kind of suspected that before we ever even went in here. And this was the underside of that cover, where the mouse got in here, chewed some stuff up. Okay, so spent a couple days. We needed to get the parts for the vehicle so they could come in. Sometimes you have to repair these wires on here. We had kind of started to decide if we were going to repair it or just get the wiring section for it. Well, it happens to be that it's a plug on either side. There's a part number for it, and the part was readily available to get. Better repair just to put in a new segment of wire if you can. There was a connection before going to the main harness. That's not always the case. Sometimes you do have to repair the wires because there isn't anything available. But we wanted to look at that first. So at this point here, we're just going to get this wire off the back here. It just like pulls on the back of the head here. So we got another little safety clip on here. You that just pulls back like that, and you can push it down and disengage it. So there's our one side, and the part looks like it's a little bit updated as well versus this one here that we got. Let's get the other side off of here. So just used a trim tool for it to pop it off. A little piece of the plastic looks like it's still down in there, so we're going to have to get that out because the plastic gets old and brittle just sitting here on this hot engine. And we're going to replace this solenoid while we're here because this is a common failed part, so we're just going to get that off of there. I got a 10 millimeter. And also you notice we put rags down to cover up the intake ports so that nothing falls down in there. So that just pops out there. And we can see it's got a little screen there. It's fairly clean overall. And we don't have to worry about taking this wire connector off because, well, we're going to replace it anyways. Why make more work for ourselves? We don't ever want to do that. Okay, so we got our New cam solenoid here, part number for that, Dodge part. Open up the box here. So this is the new solenoid. And it looks like they got a little bit of different design here, and it looks finer screens it might look like on the solenoid itself, so it's been updated. And so on this O-ring right here, we're going to want to put some grease on there to help make sure that it doesn't roll as it goes into the hole there. And we'll get this put back together again. Okay. Yeah, screw the bolt in. So I just kind of slightly snug it with the electric ratchet, then I just do it by hand the rest of the way to make sure it's nice and tight but not over tightened. Then we got our little wiring harness here. Whoa, was not expecting that to go flying out of there. Okay, so this is the new harness piece on it. And we match this up to this one here, just to make sure that they look like they're right. So yeah, it's pretty close, slightly a little difference right in here. Obviously, they put a better extra protector here. It's kind of funny because that's exactly where the mouse chewed through it at, was right in the same spot. So they must have been thinking of something there. All right, so we just got to clip this in the back here. Kind of working a little bit in the blind. A little hard to see. And we're just going to connect the connector on first here, and then we'll plug it into the back of the head back here. Let's get that clicked. Then you got your safety here that we want to make sure we just push that down so everything is all locked in place. And you've got to kind of feel for your holes. All right, so I just kind of felt for the hole with my finger and knew where it was, and I knew kind of where to guide down to get that this little guy here kind of looking thing into the hole and get it secured back here. So we got that on there, and so we're still gonna have to address this hole here because we got a little bit of plastic broke off in there. So we'll take a drill and just kind of drill that plastic out and then blow the hole out, and then we'll be all set on that one. Okay, so now we just got to drill the little plastic piece out of there. All right, and we'll just clear this out. All righty. this just snaps down into here. And this goes into here. Click in your lock here. All right. Okay, so at this point here, I looked up bulletins to see if there was any service bulletins on this updated chunk of wiring harness. There isn't. I don't see any spots for those little pieces here to set down or clip into, and I have everything connected how it originally was. So we're just going to clip these off of here. I don't want them getting in the way of anything. There's one done. There's the other one. Alrighty, so now we're going to our pad that we can stick back on there. And you can see there was damage by the mouse here. This pad is $60 if you wanted to get it. We advised our customer what they wanted to do, and since this isn't really an essential thing, customer decided, just reuse the pad. It's going to work just fine. So. So that just fits down in here like that. And then we're going to clip this one off of here also, because we're going to put a new one of these on here so we can fix it to the manifold properly. So we'll catch up to that a little bit later. We'll take our rags out of the intake ports. We're going to have to clean these surfaces off now. We got some brake clean here, or not. Looks like it needs to be filled up. Alrighty, so just grab Jesse's alcohol here. We'll use this to clean up our surfaces. So basically just go around like this to each one of them and just clean them off really good. You want a good surface for the gasket to seal against. So I'm just gonna go through and do that, and then we'll get back to you after we have this all cleaned off. I mean, you kind of get the point of what you got to do. Okay, so we got the gasket surfaces on the heads here all cleaned off for the intake. We got the special zip tie here with the Christmas tree attachment on it. We're going to put this on our wire here and get it ready before we put the intake on. Earlier in the video when I was talking about this was one of the ones that broke, so we want to just get a new one on here so that wire is properly attached. You don't want things floating around. It was done for a reason and why they put it there. All right. So we got that all set up. We're going to kind of push the stuff out of the way, kind of in preparation for getting the intake back on it. And this was that hose that went in the back. Definitely don't want to forget to reattach that. And now we got the intake manifold. We're going to have to take the gaskets out of that and then clean it up and kind of do the same thing like we did here. All right, so now let's grab a scribe and we'll take all the pieces of gasket out. Fuel kind of running out of the railing. And you always want to replace these every time you take it apart. And we're just using a tool like this just to grab it and pull each one out. All right, we'll set those to the side. Okay, and so we're just going to use the brake clean again and just hose this off with some brake clean to clean it up. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Some of that excess out. And we're just going to blow it off with some air. This brake clean is fast drying, so it'll evaporate. It's pretty fast when you hit it with the air. All right, so now we'll get our new gaskets and we'll put them in. Just match them up, make sure they're the same. Yep, they're the same size. Make sure each one of them pushes in nice and firmly. You don't want them falling out when you go to put the intake back on again. So all go together fairly easy here. Definitely a lot better than the older designs, which you had paper gaskets and you had to scrape them off. This is a much better design these new cars have. And they seal better too. All right, so we got all those back on there. A few of our bolts fell out. We'll grab those in a minute. We'll set this intake back up on here. And we're just going to kind of just set it up in place, but not all the way, so we can get those back connections on there while it's easy to get to, and then we'll set it down. Grab our bolts that dropped. All right, so the first one is this vacuum connection in the back. Get that thing plugged in. All right, make sure that's all fully on there. Now we can go ahead and set this down. Then we got our wire here that we can connect in the back. Clip it in, set the safety on it. We can pop our little piece up in the back there. Okay, so we got to get our bolt started here. Make sure we're all lined up. I always kind of look at the front holes here, and that's the easiest way to line it up because you can see them pretty good. So it's got to get all these started. And then make sure everything is clear along here, that nothing got trapped underneath the intake before going back together. That's just always wise to do to keep from having any problems. Failure to look things over before you go back together is what results in problems a lot of times. So we're just gonna bring these down close with the air ratchet because it's a lot quicker to do it that way, but there is a torque sequence on it that we're going to have to follow. But at least with this we can get them close. So we're not really even bringing them down even that close to the surface here, but just getting, so we don't have to turn them as many times as we're torquing them down. And this has got a variable control on it, so you can kind of slow down when you start getting closer. Okay, so now we'll grab our torque wrench. And this is the pattern that we're going to be following on it. I'm going to have to go get the actual specification that we're going to torque it each one down to. So I'm going to go grab that and we'll be back here. All right. We are back. So you got to put up, it's 105 inch-pounds is the torque on it. So we got our torque wrench here, inch-pounds torque wrench. Let's run it up to 105. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 105 inch-pounds. Might be a little hard to see, not even to see here in person. And then we're going to take our diagram and we just kind of lay it up in the direction that this is going to be where your throttle body is. So this is the front of the intake. We just kind of lay it this direction to make it easy. Counter bolts back, 1, 2, and this is our first one. It's important to always follow the torque on these. They're plastic intakes. Just wait till it clicks. And we go to our next one. So we got 1, 2, and third one. And then we got number 3. Now number 4. And number 5. And 6. And 7. And 8. And 9. Looks like we have a total of 10 bolts here. It'll be the very back one on the other side. Will be our last one. All right. Okay, so had a little bit of a diversion there. Another truck being towed in and dropped off. It happens all day long. That's why we're the best repair shop there is. So when we go through here, I always re-torque a second time around, because sometimes the first bolts that you do tend to kind of slacken up a little bit. Just from all the others being tightened down. So we'll quickly go through and we just double check them all. Also make sure 100% that you didn't miss any. Five, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So there was a couple of them that got a little bit on, but this one wasn't too bad. I've had others that definitely you get a little more out of them. All right. All right, so they're all torqued down. Moving on to the next step. So we got our throttle body connection here. Plug that in, set our lock. Always a good idea to pull back on the connectors and make sure that they completely seated. We got our emissions tube here. That fits into here. And then we'll go ahead and get all our Injector's plugged in. Once again, you just push them down and set all the locks. Always give them a little tug afterwards to make sure they completely engaged in place. Double checks are always good. Keep from having any problems. Feel them snap in place too, which means that they're set. So got all those on there. Now we'll do our fuel line. And so this is what we had taken off previously. So we got to just put this on, and we take it off of this side here because it's easier just to put it on this end of it and then just snap it into place. We just take that, pretty easy, pop it in, and of course, once again, pull back on it real good. This is fuel, don't want it coming off. All right, so we had this grommet here that was mangled by somebody that didn't put it together correctly. So we're going to take that out. And as always, a little nervous because sometimes they want you to buy these whole pieces here, but thankfully we were able to track the part down and able to get just the grommet by itself. Not sure on the what exactly the part number is on it here of all these different numbers, but kind of see some different ones on here. And so now we can get the new grommet in here so it properly is held in. And we're also just going to put some of this dielectric grease that we have here. This is safe for rubber. You don't want to use regular grease because it'll make rubber swell. That way it slides in and out nicely and for woman installation, and then also in the future when it has to come apart. All right, so now I always just kind of stand back and just look everything over, make sure that I've got everything reconnected on the vehicle and I didn't miss any steps here. And so we're looking pretty good. Now we've got our air cleaner assembly, or snorkel tube, I guess. So that's that one other connector that connects onto this. Where'd that guy go? Oh, here it is. So that's going to be that here. That goes into your intake air temperature sensor. And on these tubes here, you got to make sure that things kind of go together properly so you're not folding anything over when you're putting them together. Now we got our 5/16 nut driver. We can get these all tightened down here. Pop our intake air temp sensor back on. All right. So we're just going to kind of temporarily put our oil cap back on. I'm not going to put that big cover on until we know that everything is all good to go. You know, covering everything up isn't good because then you can't see if there is any potential little issues going on. We'll get the gloves off and we'll start her up and see how she runs. Actually, we'll just lower this down here, make it easier to get in and out of. All right. That's a manual transmission vehicle. Make sure we get the clutch in. That's a push start. So I started up pretty decent on it, even though they had to purge out the air out of the fuel rail. Of course, our check engine light's still on because we haven't cleared the codes yet. Also, the vehicle is pretty low on fuel as well. Might be able to. Either way, it doesn't really make a difference on seeing anything better. All right. So we're going to turn her off here and then look underneath the hood and check everything over. And then we'll get the codes cleared on it, and then we can test drive it and make sure everything's all perfect. It's always a good visual over on it is always going back to the fuel. Make sure everything is good and tight and there's no leaks at all around that. And everything is looking pretty nice and in order. So we're going to grab the our scan tool and get the codes cleared on it, and we're going to go from there. All right, so we're going to clear the codes on it and get it ready so that we can test drive it. We got our Autel Maxisys, and there'll be a link in the description so you can check this tool out on Amazon. This is the Pro version of it. You can do reprogramming and everything. They have other versions as well. I'll put a couple different ones up on the link so you can check them out. This tool is amazing. It does so much stuff through all the different car lines. We use this thing all day long, every day. Okay, so we're on the home screen here. Just got to click diagnostics, and then we got to pick our vehicle manufacturer. Let's go to Dodge. Okay, then we just do automatic so it can read our VIN for us. And we just do read. And then okay. And it's kind of nice that there's no wires or anything like that. Back in the day, there wasn't have all that. So yeah, we can just double check here. 2010 Dodge Challenger. And you also got to make sure that you have your vehicle in the on position with the engine off. Let's do diagnostics, auto scan. So I'll go through and scan our systems and tell us if there's any faults in any of the systems. Of course, we've got one fault on the powertrain control module because we have that old code that's in there. And you can tell it's pretty quick. Actually, puts all the stuff out pretty fast. Got an amplifier code. I mean, that's probably not that big of a deal. We'll go through and just clear all these codes once they've all been scanned through. All right, we'll just do a quick erase. And I'll go through and erase any of the codes in the system. And now we're passing with no fault. All right, so we got everything cleared out of there. Perfect. So now we'll just start the vehicle up and just double check everything one more time. So see our check engine light's off now. Set our brake for safety. Okay, so let's look everything over here. All appears to be good and it's running excellent. No check engine light on. We just got to get the hood cover back on it. Yeah, of course, customer didn't mind that there was some damage from the mice on the underside of it. $190 piece. I mean, yeah, I would just reuse it myself too. All right, I appreciate you watching this video. Please subscribe, and thank you for your time. Smash that like button. Okay, so very important step. Almost missed it. Is we don't want these mice coming back, and so we just use some cayenne pepper here, and just put this over the engine, and keeps the mice from ever returning again, and don't have to worry about. Just kind of taking this, lightly sprinkle some of this on here. That way we don't have any future issues with mice coming in. Woo! All right, we'll put the engine cover back on, and it'll be a wrap.